there, welcome to my channel. My name is Doug and I'm back with another Pen Resurrection Sunday video. The dead pen ready for resurrection today is a Skywriter by Waterman. So it's in the original box here. I picked this up at an antique store recently, and it's not just a fountain pen, it is a fountain pen and pencil set in this beautiful amber celluloid. You may not be able to tell by scale, but this is a fairly short pen. Here is an Esterbrook H, very similar to the Esterbrook J fountain pen, and you can see how much bigger it is than this small Skywriter. Now, my research tells me that the Skywriter was a limited medium-priced celluloid pen made by the Alco division of Waterman. Alco stood for Aiken Lambert Company and was a jewelry and pen maker in New York City, and the brand was taken over in the early 1930s by Waterman, and this pen seems to date from around 1936. We can see some engravings here on the clip that disappeared in the Waterman 1937 catalog but appear in the 1936 catalog. And this one was made in Canada. It says here on the imprint, Skywriter in quotes, manufactured in Canada by the Alco division, L.E. Waterman Company Limited, and that would be in Montreal. Actually, the factory was in Saint-Lambert, near Montreal. Let's take a look at the fountain pen first and see what it needs. It's in really good shape. There's some brassing on the clip, so we'll see how that polishes up. Of course, that gold might just come right off, so we'll have to be careful with that. There's one single cap band with some brassing. The celluloid seems to be good with lots of wear. Minute scratches, no big scratches or gouges. The top finial, and of course the imprint is fairly deep. The end finial, no cracks that I can see. The spade lever has some brassing on it and dullness to it as well. But that celluloid is gorgeous. Look at that. Cap unscrews, and there's the ebonite section. No scratches or dings. And here's the nib. It has a diamond shape, 14 KT-R. So I don't know whether that means replacement or not. And the ebonite feed, slightly misaligned. And I can move this. So I've been able to pull this off. You can see the pressure bar comes with it. A bit of the pressure bar has broken off, but the pressure bar itself actually functions very nicely. No corrosion on that at all. And it has a fairly large sack. I'm going to replace this sack, I think, with a number 17, which is what this pen takes. And I think this is a number 18 sack that was put in here. I think the 17 is what my charts say that the Waterman Skywriter took. So I purchased a number 17 and we'll replace that sack. The main reason for replacing the sack, getting that off of there, is so I can pound that feed and nib out of there so we can polish it up and clean it up and make sure it writes okay. The tipping seems to be excellent. Look at that. It looks a bit tight.
You have a tight body. Yes, you are tight like a tiger.
So we'll have to see. Looks like those tines are a little bit too close together. So I'll have to see about aligning that feed and replacing that sack and making sure that that pressure bar will line up properly inside the pen so that it functions. Now let's take a look at the pencil. The pencil's clip also has some good degree of brassing on it and on the gold band as well. And there's no imprint on this, but there's a couple of gouges right in there. I think that's just guck from a sticker or something like that. No gouges, just gunk all over it from a sticker. We'll polish up that gold. The mechanism works, and that's a 1.0 millimeter lead that goes in and out of there. The cap unscrews, and you find the eraser on the inside. I think you can store leads down in there. The lead sticks in the back of the push rod and expels and retracts, and that works really nicely. These are junior size pens, if not lady size pens, with the cap size being about 108 millimeters, which is about 4 1/4 inches. So we're going to soak these parts in a pen flush bath, ultrasonic, to clean it up a bit, and then we'll look at getting that sack off and getting that nib and feed out. So let's see if we can get this sack off of here. Just give it a pull and see whether it's, oh yeah, it's coming off this side. It came off very easily. Now let's take a look at this sack. It's in pretty good shape. I don't think it's old at all. It's a bit big, but bigger the better. If it actually fits inside this barrel and it's the right length, like that. Yeah, it looks like it's the right length. I might decide to keep this sack because it shows no signs of deterioration at all. This pen has been resacked recently. So let's see whether we can get this feed out of here. There we go. Line it up with the right rod and give it a tap. Let's see what happens. And there's our nib. And the only thing left on it was Canada at the bottom, right there. 14K T, 14K T, R, a couple of chevrons, and Canada. So that'll go back in the bath, and then we'll polish that up. And here's our feed. Of course, it's ebonite. Looks in really good shape. We'll polish that up. The visible part there. Put it on my Dremel polishing tool, and we'll get that nice and shiny. And once I've polished the feed and the nib, get it all back to former glory, and we'll polish up the ebonite section as well. Get it all nice and shiny. Get all those scratches out of there. We'll put it all back together again and do a dip test on that nib and see whether it needs any work. And if it's writing nicely, then I think I'm just going to put this sack right back on this pen and give it a fill test and see how it works. And here is the nib all polished up, looking brand new. Look at that. Gotta love gold. That's gorgeous. And here we have the section all polished up and beautiful, looking very shiny indeed. And there is the feed. Ebonite shines up very nicely. So I'm going to put these things back together again, and then we'll do a dip test on the nib. And one of the first things I like to do with the feed is to sand it down with a bit of 400 grit sandpaper. And you know it's ebonite because it turns this brownish color, and it smells like burning rubber. But that also gets that ebonite dust along that section of the feed and acts as a bit of a lubricant to help get it back into that section properly. And then I'll take a small Dremel stone from my Dremel kit. I won't use the machine itself, but just scrape the inside of the section to score it a little bit, get it to be a little bit slippery, and help that feed go back in again. So here we are. We're going to line up the nib properly this time because it was slightly askew before. And we're going to hold it with a little bit of gripper material, rubber mat, elastic band will do, so that it's just shy of that tip. I'm going to hold it top and bottom just like that. And I'm going to grab the other end, the section end, and we're going to try to find the sweet spot. I think it's about there, but it's still very sticky. Yeah, I'm going to try to open that section up a little bit more. Okay, we'll try this again. Still too tight. But do I have it in there far enough? I think I do. That's just about where it was. Just shy of the end of that section. The only thing we need to check on is cap clearance. So let's just put this back in the barrel for a moment and check on our cap clearance. It looks pretty good. It has to go all the way to there to get any trouble. Yep, plenty of cap clearance. So now I'm just going to put that nib and section back in the pen, and we'll get out some paper and do a dip test. Get out some Watermans for the Waterman, and I'm going to have to post this because it's a very short pen. Posted is very nice. Let's see what we have here. So I'm going to say this is 1936 Waterman Skywriter, and it's got quite a bit of scratch that way and a lot of feedback up and down. Yeah, so it's going to require some tuning. But let's see what we have here. Slightly thicker vertically than it is horizontally, and it has a good amount of flex to it. Yeah, a nice amount of bounce. So let's take a look at it under the loop. I think it's come out of alignment a little bit when I put it back into the section. So I'm going to have to align those tines a little bit better than that. You can see, you might be able to see if you look down this way, that they're slightly misaligned. So I'll work on that off camera and give it a little bit of micro mesh and come back and try it again. So I spent some time working with that nib, and adjusting it. It took me a little bit more time than I expected. I reset the nib and feed so that the feed is a little bit deeper and the nib is a little bit more extended, and it's allowed me to adjust that nib so it's lined up, and I've smoothed it out, and we'll do a writing sample with it as soon as I resack the pen. But for the moment, I'm going to take the nib and section out, put it aside, and we're going to look at polishing up this celluloid. I did a little bit of work on the clip. Now if you compare this to the pencil clip, you can see the difference. Both the pencil and the pen clips were about the same. I put a little bit of metal polish on there and some jeweler's polishing cloth just with some careful buffing, but it looks a lot better. I'm going to do the same light polishing on the clip on the pencil and that cap band. So as always, I'm going to avoid the imprint until I get to the finer grades of micromesh, and I'm going to use the 400 grit flexible sandpaper on the celluloid first after I've masked off the clip, and then we'll go through the micromesh through to 12,000, and then on the polishing wheel with some polishing compound, and then a final buff, and we'll see what it looks like before and after. Here's before, and we'll put after down below. And after going through all the micromesh and the polishing and buffing, this is what the pen looks like now. Let's put it down here so we can compare with what it looked like before. Beautiful. I'm very pleased with how that clip polished up. I did not expect that. Now let's compare it with the pencil, which has not been buffed up or shined, especially the clips. Look at that. I did not expect that clip to come up that shiny. I thought I'd lose all the plating on it, but it's deeper than I thought, and all of that brassing was just tarnish. We'll do the same treatment on the pencil that we did on the pen. But first, let's put the whole pen together so we can see what it looks like. A gorgeous nib, polished up section, even that lever came up gleaming. Cap band and the clip, and the imprint is still very, very visible. So very successful there. All we have to do now is polish up the pencil and then resack this pen with the original sack and pressure bar and hope it all comes together. So the sack won't need any stretching because it fits on there perfectly from being on there for years. So I'm just going to add some shellac with my shellac brush from the inky nib and put this sack back on. It should slide right on like that. There we go. Give it a little bit of a twist, and then we paint right across that seam to make sure there are no leaks. And then we let that dry for several hours before we put it back in, and we're going to have to reseat that pressure bar and make sure it stays in place. And here is the pencil all shined up, polished up beautifully, and look at that clip. It didn't look like it would come back from its pitted state, but it's gorgeous. Same thing with that cap ring right there and the gold tip as well. When you unscrew the cap, you pull the eraser out, and there are your spare leads in the cap. Interesting design on this pencil. So now we have them both polished up. This is dry, so we're going to put the section back in the pen. I'm going to add a little bit of talc to that sack to make sure that it doesn't get twisted or bunched up inside the barrel. As I said earlier, I think this is one size too large, but it actually does fit, so we're going to go with it. So I've lined up the pressure bar as best I can with the lever, and we'll slide that in, and I might have to heat that. It's been out of the section so long, might have to heat that barrel up a little bit. And there we go. And that little bit of extra shellac right there will keep that section solid. Actually, I might want to line it up a little bit better. There, I gave it a bit of a turn so that that lever lines up with the nib. Now I'll get out some Watermans and see about filling this pen up, see how much ink it will take. Weigh it first, 7.28, and I'll give it a couple of pulls. There we go, let's see, 0.87, not too bad. That's probably about 3/4 of the capacity of that sack. A couple more pulls, it might make it more, but 0.9 almost 1 milliliter of ink. And we'll post the pen so it's writable and see what we have. 1936 Waterman Skywriter. I think I've got some fluff in my nib. Just gonna floss that nib slit a little bit. There we go. When you polish the nib, sometimes you get debris down that slit, but that nib is looking very nice. That's better. Let's see what we have here in terms of thickness. Get out my pad from Dominant Industries that I got from Tom Odo of Gold Spot Pens. Thank you, Tom. And I'm guessing this is 0.5, just about bang on 0.5 millimeters. So 0.5 millimeters, which is a Western fine. Let's check the wetness here. It's very wet. And now it's really smooth. And let's check out the line variation. Yeah, it's not a flex nib, but it's got lots of bounce to it. Yeah, typical vintage 14 karat gold nib. Very nice pen. Very pretty too. Let's try out the pencil. We turn the tip and get a little bit of the pencil lead. 1936 Waterman Skywriter pencil. And this is a 1.0 millimeter lead. That's actually very nice. Very nice. It might be difficult to get 1 millimeter leads. You'd have to search around. I've only seen 0.9 as the thickest in the stationery stores, but I'm sure you can find them. And that's just a lovely, lovely set. Let's put them back in the box here. I want to try this pen as well. I restored this, a couple years ago. And I put it up for sale and no one bought. So I think I'll put it up for sale again. Let's dip test this. This is an Esterbrook H with an Esterbrook 2048 stub italic nib that I've polished up. And you can see the video on this restoration by clicking right up there. Let's dip this nib and I'll show you how it writes again. And this is the 1940s Esterbrook H. And it has a cursive italic stub nib that generally goes from about 0.2 millimeters to about 0.9 millimeters in thickness, so you get some really nice line variation out of this Esterbrook nib. It is a cursive italic, so it tends to be sharp, so you have to have a light touch with it, but it works very, very nicely. And there we go, and I'll be back with my thoughts on this correction on these resurrections. So what are my thoughts about this resurrection? Well, this turned out better than I could have hoped, with one exception. And the exception is the pressure bar inside this pen. Unfortunately, the spring end of the pressure bar had broken off. The good news is the pressure bar itself is in excellent shape, and the pen fills with ink perfectly. I've restored the pen completely, and it works flawlessly. The oversized sack holds the pressure bar in place, but there's no guarantee that a sharp knock won't make it slide to the side. I was going to sell this pen and pencil set for $100 US plus shipping, but if you're interested in buying this set with a newly replaced J-bar, you'll have to indicate you are willing to wait a couple of weeks for one to arrive from pentooling.com for me to replace it. The bar itself is just $5 US, but with shipping it will be $25 US. So as is, 100 bucks. With a new J-bar, it will be $125 plus shipping. Shipping to the US is now double what it was just a month ago because of added tariffs, administrative fees to administer the tariffs, and extra fees to take advantage of the tariffs to make extra profits on the tariffs. So it was about $10 to ship to the US before, now it's 20 bucks US to ship to the US. Everywhere else is still about 10 bucks. If you're interested, I also have this completely restored Esterbrook H lever filler in gorgeous green celluloid with a steel Esterbrook 2048 cursive italic nib, and it's available for $80 US plus shipping. So if you're interested in either of these restored pens, send me an email at inkquiringminds@gmail.com with your name and your address so I can get you a shipping quote and provide you with instructions on how to pay my PayPal. And there you have it. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring that bell to get instant notifications whenever a new video is posted. And you can join as a member of my channel for only 99 cents a month, and I guarantee I'll answer your comments in the comment section, and you'll get cool emojis, badges, sneak peek unboxing videos, as well as instant access to my videos the moment I upload them. And that just leaves it for me to say thank you. For watching. And that's all she wrote.
I made this.